Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
There are beings who walk among us, children of the long-forgotten Nephilim, beings that are crossbreeds of angels and men. Those genes have been passed down through the centuries and finally awakened. And that's about as Robert Stack as I can get on this episode of In Search Of. So, without further ado, I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com. And tonight we welcome Luke Stone, the creator behind Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. I just jump you right. I wait till somebody
right there, yeah.
Perfect
timing, yeah.
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me tonight. It's nice to be able to actually make it without any emergencies. So,
well, even fake emergencies, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't know when it happens. So and.
Isn't that the truth? You never know when something's something unexpected is going to take place, and so thankfully the last time we were supposed to do this, it was a false alarm. So yeah, we had an alarm go off at our church, and it turns out the cleaning guy had his earbuds in, didn't realize he'd set off the alarm. So I walk in, he's cleaning, and the alarm had been tripped. So,
it's a good thing it wasn't a fire alarm. He could have been burning up in there because he wouldn't have known to get out.
Yeah, right. You would, he just didn't, I don't know. Like, I don't understand like why he, didn't notice I don't know, but yeah,
volume was up really loud in those earbuds.
Oh yeah. He was jamming apparently. Yeah.
Was he doing like a risky business kind of move when
thankfully I didn't see anything like that. I think, of course, that might have made it worth the drive out there, because our new church building is about 25, 30 minutes away from where I live. So it might have actually made it worthwhile to walk in and to see.
Yeah. We could have started live streaming right there. So we're just waiting for him to turn around.
Yeah, this is great. We thought it had a better story to tell, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm glad you didn't have the story to tell that, yeah, somebody broke a window, came in, took a bunch of, I don't know, what would they take?
Well, I've got a pretty expensive guitar sitting in there.
That's true. The musical instruments would definitely be,
PA and things like that. We've got pieces for that stuff. So
I was having trouble thinking of the more mundane resellable stuff. I mean, what are you going to take? You take offering plates, a podium, or walk out with a pew? Yeah,
but instruments is probably what they would go after. We've they had a rash of church break-ins in my hometown, and there was people just going after instruments and stuff like that mostly.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of the guitarists and stuff, they leave their stuff behind,
Well,
so
sure.
they don't have to carry it every week. Some of the bigger stuff like amps and pedal boards and things like that. But
that's
so I was concerned about that. Yeah.
At our church, of course, ours was a tiny church, which you probably could have picked the lock with a hairpin if you just didn't jiggle the handle and it went in anyway. But yeah, electric guitar was sitting right there next to my snare drum. That's all I had was the snare drum. None of the other stuff. So it was like, that was me. I got that triangular three tap beat going down. That was my teenage years.
So why didn't you have the other drums? Was it like, did they not like those things, or was it just
there wasn't space on the platform? And second of all, I wouldn't have known what to do with them. I was like, I'm good right here.
I know my way around a guitar, but you don't really want me messing with the drums. That's not my strong suit.
I'd have ended every hymn with a do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And that wouldn't, in the United Pentecostal Church of 1975, that would not have flown.
That would have not, that would not have gone well. I'm pretty sure they would have laid hands on you.
I'd be like, I'd be going like, I'd be the drummer in Foghat. We
got to pray it out of him.
What this round of Amazing Grace needs is more cowbell.
Yeah. The more in my opinion, the more beat you got, the better. That's my kind of
Yeah. Now, when I was a teenager, this would be like mid 80s, I was actually the one breaking ground with the music in our small little church, was because whenever people would do specials, it was always like, something out of the book or something that you heard on the local Christian radio station, which was all Southern gospel, so it was a song everybody knew and the piano player knew it. And I come in with a cassette tape. I'm like, yeah, I get
what
these
did you do?
things. Oh, I got the initial, no one's going to like this, but if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it and get it over with. And then people got to where they liked it. And it was, it was like Michael Card and Don Francisco and working my way up from there. But it was, I brought my cassette player in, plugged it into the amp, bought myself, a little 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch connection thing, and said, "Here we go, folks."
Did you ever unleash any David and the Giants on them?
I was going to, and surprisingly, I did not. It wasn't David and the Giants. It was David, but it wasn't the Giants with him.
Okay.
And I was like, this particular Sunday, I want to do this song, and they're like, "Yeah, we all stand for that, and we appreciate that, but nevertheless, we're not going to risk angering any of the congregants by taking use of of pro-life Sunday and singing Green Eyes Like Janie's." I was like, but
it's
like,
so good.
No, we're not doing it. When I went to Saw's Baptist Church, and I was doing pretty much the same thing then, but it was like, stuff that was out in the late 90s and early 2000s. So I built myself up a bigger and more modern repertoire of songs. None of Casting Crowns. I remember that one. I had some songs from them that were being done in church. But mostly that they liked the Don Francisco stuff, which I think the pastor liked it, because if I was asked to do a Don Francisco song, he almost didn't have to preach. it was like, okay, Easter, we're gonna sing, he's gonna do "He's Alive," and I'm like, that's like a 7-minute song.
Yeah, some of those got pretty long. Some were pretty.
Yeah, they were story ballads, and he was like, I don't think I have to say anything more today. Y'all go home now. I'm like,
I was really into like rock and metal and stuff back then, when back in the 90s when I was a kid in church. And
Striper.
Well, I kind of thought Striper was a little lame. It was because I'm not an 80s. I was born in the 80s, but I was a teenager in the 90s. Yeah. So I wanted stuff that like what I heard on the radio. And I remember like early 90s. DC Talk was doing a lot of that hip hop stuff, and I wasn't really into that, but I remember when I heard the Jesus Freak album, and it changed things for me, when I heard that album, that first time when I heard that dun 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 dun, on the acoustic guitar, then I heard that wow to get electric, and I was like, oh, we can do this now? Like, this is allowed? All right, sweet.
It was always, of course, I was raised in the record burning eras of church, and it was, I was like, oh, that's the music. I'm like, okay, is it the beat or is it the lyrics? Because what's because if I could take, Amazing Grace and sing it to, like Inagata Davida, does that do anything for you? I mean,
yeah.
And
Like, what makes it evil? So just, help me understand that. Like,
Yeah.
what makes it evil? But from that, I found these other groups that I really liked, like this band called Tourniquet, because I was really into heavy metal at the time. So Tourniquet, Mortification. I mean, we're talking like growling metal, and just really good theologically sound music too. On top of that,
Yeah.
If you're looking for that kind of thing, which I was. But I also wanted to rock out and headbang and that kind of stuff. So it worked out really well, that I was able to find those kind of things early on. And oddly enough, it was music that I always thought that I was going to be like my primary source of kind of artistic expression.
But you went with that other spawn of the devil, comic books.
Comic books, yeah. So. It is what it is.
Which were also piled up and burned at one point in history.
They were, and it was funny because, even in the church, like they're like, comic books were not really looked at as being anything of value. And I think, historically, we see people try to lump comic books up in that way. And I think what frustrates me is even now, like, to know where comic books came from, like as far as what they were. I don't know how much you know about obviously, I think you probably know quite a bit about the history, but maybe someone listened.
I lived most of it.
Might not. Yeah. When you think about the historical aspect of comics and where it came from, it just stemmed for an illustrator. You wanted to get your stuff in the paper. Because that was where people were buying. And the only reason why they were running comic books, it was so that so the ink wouldn't dry, because it was really expensive to try to clean those machines. It was really hard. And the best way to, the ink would dry if it didn't stay active. And so they wanted to keep the presses running all day. It was cheaper to do it that way. And so they just started putting all the funnies together from the papers in strips and put them into a book, and just to see if they would sell. I mean, it's a nickel, or whatever. And it was, they needed to fill that content. And so people started, they started to, if you got rejected from a newspaper, like these funny books that were, where you wound up. And it wasn't a prestigious thing. It wasn't something, that people were proud of or bragging about. And it, so there's a bit of frustration for me when I see that, people try to be all real prestigious with comic books, and that, and mostly not really the prestige, but kind of the elitist attitudes, Yeah.
That kind of changed in the 90s, I think. I mean, before the 90s, people were doing comic books because they were trying to get into advertising.
Yeah.
And then when the image breakout happened and there was all this attention, people were trying to get their artwork into advertising so they could break into comic books.
Mm-hmm.
It just did a full 180 as far as the perception in the public eye. Now, I think it's probably, if it hasn't done a full 180 again since then, it's just done a complete collapse, because I don't think anybody cares or knows about comic books. And a lot of that has to do with the post-90s direct market switch that they did with the distribution. They just took them out of the public eye of everybody.
Sadly, there are a lot of people that don't even know like really what a comic book is. That they have to be educated on that. And I think we saw that a lot with the with that deal that was set up with the Red Rooster company in Walmart. Where people were like, they don't really even know what they've got. I mean, it's sad.
It's almost like, if you were to take Harlequin romances, if the Harlequin romance company said, you know what, we're going to take all our paperbacks and we're going to quit putting them in the drugstores and in the Walmarts and in the Barnes and Nobles and what have you, and we're just going to open up little Harlequin romance stores in a couple of different towns in every state, nobody would buy them anymore. I don't even know if Harlequin romance still exists, because haven't dug into a good bodice ripper in a long time now.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of it's kind of crazy, like what we did with the whole direct market thing, and I love comic book shops. I mean, I fell in love with comics in a comic book shop. Thankfully, I had one in my hometown. Here where I'm at in Jacksonville, we've got several comic book shops that are local to us. But there's some people that don't have access to comic book shop.
Exactly.
Like, it's just
I love the comic book shops. The thing is that the industry itself didn't realize they could have both. And when they started, they did. They had the distribution in the Walmarts and the distributions in the comic shops, and you could always tell where a book came from if you just looked at the cover. If it had a barcode in the corner, you knew, oh, that came through a store, and the blank squares came from comic shops. Now they all have barcodes again, because it's the only way to go, and comic shops have the scanning capability for inventory and stuff.
They need that for all point of sales can do that now. So that's But back back when comic shops didn't even have cash registers, and I forget who it was. It was one of the ladies at Marvel, I think. Might have been DC. I can't recall. Your boy Zach did a video on her like about a year and a half ago. And basically her job was to check in on comic shops, and she found that they were all, a lot of them were running on shoeboxes full of cash. And she ran some sort of training program and incentive program that got them all cash registers. So if you're going to be a business, be a real business. It was a huge contribution. That's just hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. You're a store, for God's sake. This is what a store does. This is not a yard sale that you're running.
You're a business. Act like a business. Yeah,
exactly. Speaking of the business of comics, you are a business, sir. You are on your 6th campaign.
Well, that's my 6th campaign on Indiegogo. That doesn't count all of my Kickstarter campaigns that I've done.
This is true, and
so
regrettably, I only know these 2.
I have crossed platforms. Well, it takes a while. There's a saying. It says it takes years to become an overnight success.
That's right.
And so my goal is that more and more people will hear about the story, and that they'll start to engage with it. But it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to try to get out in front of people. And so that's kind of really what I've been working on, especially with the last 2 campaigns, is really trying to get out in front of more people and let them get to know what we're doing with the story. I see a lot of indie comics that I think most of them really try to do a good job. I'm not really impressed with a lot of the mainstream stuff these days, and I think that I'm not alone in that. I feel like but even talking about it's like beating a dead horse. And so rather than keep talking about all the disappointment that I feel from mainstream comics, I would rather talk about, what the solution is and what the alternative is in the independent and alternative comics market. And so that's really what I try to work on is letting people know that, hey, if you're into, comics written by people who really care, then you might really like this book.
Yeah. Well, I've said that before, is that, the biggest problem that Marvel and DC have, the biggest problem is not their distribution. It's not their artists. It's not their writers. It's that their editors, the editorial departments, are no longer staffed by people who love comics.
Yeah.
We don't have the Stan Lees and the Dick Giordanos and the Julie Schwartzes anymore. And Captain Cockney Spock is in the chat. Welcome to Captain Cockney Spock. Glad to see you. The Jim Shooters, the Jim Valentinos, all those guys.
Yeah, love him or hate him, Jim Shooter did a lot of great things for Marvel, and he loved comic books. He really cared, and he was a true talent. He was a real true talent. And,
absolutely. I keep trying to add things back to the stream, and I'm like, I just have to change the view. I don't have to click on the square anymore, and I just remove it from the stream. I'm like, that's not what I want. This is labeled as the part 1 and 2, but this is really the appearance of part 2, and part 1 is like a catch-up option, right?
Yes and no. So
how's this working out?
This is part 2 of the Killing Field. So I have done, as you said, I've done 6 campaigns on Indiegogo, but I've run. This is the 7th. Legacy issue. If we're going to do legacy numbering for the issues, this is number 7 of a much larger arc. And so issues 1 through 5 were one arc, which was kind of the introductory into the world. And then this is another story that you don't necessarily have to have the first 5 issues for in order to be able to jump in, because I've made sure to put like little notes and little catch ups, kind of how it used to be in those old comics when.
Oh, yeah.
Here's what I learned. Every comic is somebody's first comic. So I try to treat every book that way. Like, hey, this might be somebody's first time picking up this book, and they need to be able to get into the story
And you
right
know what?
where they're at.
Back in my day, back when we were getting floppies every month, 22-page stories from DC and Marvel, if you got into the second part of the story, guess what? You figured it out from the first 3 text boxes on the first page as you're jumping in media res to whatever's happening. You didn't have to like read the inside of the front cover and have this like black wall of white text. It's like 10 minutes later, you're done with finding out what happened last issue, and you're like, I'm too tired to go on to the rest of the book.
I try to make this book the same way. I want to make it to where you don't have to get into that stuff. You can learn. I do put a little bit of text, like a recap at the beginning of an issue, but I for the most part, I really try to let it be organic in the storytelling so that people can enjoy it and be able to jump in wherever they are. So this is officially part 2 of the Killing Field arc. So this arc is going to be 4 issues. The first arc was 5, but there are catch-up tiers. So if you do want to get, whenever I'm doing an arc, I always make sure that you can get even on 4, it'll be 1 through 4.
Sure.
I'll say the complete arc, the complete trash day arc is what I'll call it. And then we try to do at some point, we try to do a trade paperback. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen this year. Because of some of the big things that we have going on, which I can talk about tonight. But
well, let's do that right after this. We got a video here, so we're going to let our viewers take a look at that. Now let's see if I turn the sound on this time.
In a world where the powers of the ancient Greek gods live on through their ancestors, it is up to an intrepid team of heroes to foil the wicked plots of the Hybrid Engineering Corporation. Armed with new information concerning an ancient weapon fabled to have the power to kill a demon, Rev and the team split up to gather the shards and put an end to Azazel before it is too late. Little do they know, the Game Master is still pulling the strings. New characters, new threats, and tons of plot-driven action await you in the Killing Field Part 2.
That was concise and to the point. And my goodness, is that an Arrow 4.0 logo I saw at the tail end of that video?
That is an Arrow 4.0. So you probably are familiar. Hopefully some of the people out there are familiar with Arrow comics from back in the day.
Yes.
Randy Zimmerman is reviving that company, and it is making its debut this September. No, I'm sorry, in September, October. Not October, August. Oh my gosh,
this sometime August, in 20,000. 20,000 something.
Yeah. They will be returning to comic publishing greatness, is what they like to say, and so I'm pretty excited about it. And I got invited to be a part of that kind of that rebirth of this, and so with that comes in August. These books, starting with issue 1, are going to be re-released to the direct market, and so we're very excited about that, and kind of what the what that entails and stuff. So, big moves.
Yeah. So, are they going to have different covers or anything that? Well, I guess they'll have the Arrow 4.0 indicia mark in the. That's not the indicia. That's the imprint. The indicia is the tiny print that nobody reads at the bottom of the front page of a comic that has all the legalese.
It will have some indicia in there, but it will have the trade dress for the Arrow Comics 4.0 on them. We're going to go back with some of the original covers. We might change up issue 2 cover a little bit. Issue 1 cover was pretty iconic from its first release, and people really seemed to like it. So we're going to leave that one intact. But with it came a complete remaster. Well, I say complete. It's near complete. It's like 85-ish% of the book was redrawn. Everything was relettered. We extended a few scenes that had been trimmed down. The original publication was only 20 pages because we were a small publisher at the time and we didn't have the resources to do a larger book. And so everything that I had wanted to do, we had to try to trim it down a bit. So the ending felt a little rushed. There was a couple of scenes that I had originally had in there that I couldn't leave in there. We thought, all right, we'll be able to tell these bits of story somewhere else in the midst. And so we were able to do that, not as organically as I wanted to, but pretty well. But now, as soon as we found out we were going to go with Arrow Comics, we decided to go and do a complete restructure, remaster. And so this is kind of the Snyder cut, if you will, of issue 1. So it is the as part of this campaign, you're also going to be able to get a hold of that, which is pretty exciting news for us.
So it's not just a catch up of part 1; it's an expansion of part 1.
Yeah, it's there's some differences, some significant differences, and I think for anyone that is a fan and has read it already, it's worthwhile. It's the issue that I wanted to give everyone to begin with, but I wasn't quite good enough, and I didn't have the resources to do that. Well, both of those things are a bit remedied. I'm a little better than I was back then, so we're able to really focus in on producing something well.
So here's the hard question.
Yeah.
How did you get better?
A lot of practice. Drawing.
Just drawing. I mean, was there feedback from somebody, training that you
working with an editor?
That will help. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's basically how I did it. A lot of practice. And as you can see right now, my eyes are focused just slightly down, right?
Yes.
My hand is constantly moving because no matter what I'm doing, I'm drawing. I've got, we're producing books at such a lightning rate right now to keep up with the Arrow production schedule that I've got to always draw. And so
you're drawing right now. You should get a second camera and just like I'm reaching.
The good news is
best $4 I spent at Walmart.
The good news is I work.
Aim it down.
I work digital, so I'm able to share.
Oh well. Here I'm sitting here thinking we need to get shots of your desk, and you can just kind of put it on there. Look at that. We are watching live. This is a draw stream. Somebody tweeted out.
Yeah.
Hello, Bap. Welcome to the chat, man.
Yeah.
We're talking with Luke Stone about Hybrids, The Killing Field, Part 1 and 2. And we just learned that while Part 1 was done before, this is more than a catch-up. Part 1 has been slightly remastered, and you're getting the stoner, and I'm not going to say the stoner cut. That might
the stoner cut.
that might come across a little wrong.
Well, and I want to clarify that part 1 of The Killing Field is not being changed, but issue 1 of the complete series is being changed, and it's available during this. So this is an odd thing that I'm doing. There's really like 3 books all at once. Technically 4 if you count issue 6, the part 1 of The Killing Field. So you can get part 1 of The Killing Field, part 2 of The Killing Field. You can get issue 1 remastered, and you can get a role-playing game quick play. I've been working with this guy named Nicholas Tockard, and he has developed the engine, if you will, for a wonderful role-playing game. And so we are going to release a full manual for that game later this year. But with this campaign, we are introducing that to the world with a quick play that you can kind of be introduced to the rules in kind of a fun way.
Very nice. Now we have a question in the chat asking, BAP2 is asking, will this be brought together as a trade paperback? I think my response to that would be that this is a trade paperback because it is more than one floppy issue in part 2.
Well, it is. It's still individual books. So yeah, you'll get a I think it's 36 page or 32 page floppy for issue 1. It's 32 pages for the issue 1. For part 1 of The Killing Field, which is issue 6, it's a floppy. For issue 7, you're getting a floppy, but that's 36 pages. of content.
Oh, I'm
And so-
getting all mixed up here. Okay, so we're on issue number 6 of Hybrids.
Seven. Yeah.
7. That happens to be part 2 of the story that began in issue number 6.
Yes.
Issue number 1 is the one that's being remastered.
Yes.
I'm caught up. I've been sitting here going, wait a second now. Is it like 1, 2, and 3, or like part 1 and then 3, 4, 5, and 6? Okay, I'm on the same page now. So then I guess the question still remains when it will become coming together as a trade paperback. I would guess 1 through 5 sometime real soon, since that would be right before the Killing Fields.
1 through 5 was released as a trade paperback. I believe last year. Yeah, last year. And then we plan on doing this trade paperback. The schedule is every month and a half I'm releasing a new book. So this is issue 8 is already being produced. What I'm working on right now is a team up with another publisher. His character and my character are doing a little adventure together. And so that's what I'm working on right now. We're both inking the book. Somebody did the rough layouts. So gave me the rough layout, and then I'm supposed to pencil and ink it, but I'm just inking. I'm doing the pencil as I go with the inking.
Now, you're doing this all in digital.
Yeah.
How do you? Because that looks like scanned in pencils. I mean, I have no idea what these tools are. I've seen people use the tablet and start drawing. I'm like, I would not get the same tactile. I've got to feel the pencil scratch on the paper to know how hard I'm pressing and what kind of line I'm getting. And
quite honestly, my screen has a texture to it, so it feels like I'm drawing with a pencil.
That is cool. So it's not the smooth glass anymore.
No, it feels like I'm drawing with a pen, with a right on paper. So
you don't know how easy you got it back.
Oh, I do, because I used to have to do it that way.
How many times am I going to have to say in my life for the rest of my life, back in my day, back when we had Windows 3.2 and people were drawing in paint, this was your pencil. You were moving the cursor around with a mouse, and people were producing really cool art. But I was like, how in the heck do you move them? You got to hold the click button down while you're doing it, and your hand is all.
I've got this cool little you can see that little controller that I'm using with Clip Studio, and I'm able to move really quickly. You see how quickly I'm able to ink. I've been drawing these characters for a while, so I don't really need to pencil them. I kind of know where those lines are supposed to be. I mean, the roughs are there. So
and the really nice part is, so if you go over a line, Control Z.
Yeah.
There's no break out the big rubber sponge and soak up and try to fix a mistake.
Yeah. The world has become an easier place for comic book artists. A lot easier place for comic book artists.
Maybe even too easy. Don't get lazy, guys. Keep the art quality up. BAP is one of your trash day consumers. So
awesome.
He says, I really liked how everything was put into one book. So you're gonna have to wait a few more books to get to get the Killing Fields in it.
There will be a re-release of the trade paperback for Trash Day Volume 1 at some point with the remastered, because we're remastering issues 1 through 4, because those were all just 20 pages originally. And with Arrow Comics, the thing is I have to produce a 32-page book. And so instead of just throwing a bunch of backup stories and stuff in, I want to take those original books where I had a very limited amount of space to work with and use that space now to tell more story that I wanted to. So those stories will wind up getting extended and have some extra content to them.
Now, are you going to crowdfund those with Arrow Comics, or are they just going to be printed and sent to local comic shops?
Well, that's a good question. And it's one that I've been working on for a while. One of the things that I want to do is offer them to everyone that's been with me from, the earlier issues, so that they can get those ahead of time, so that they don't have to wait to, get those in the retailer. So that's where I'm going to offer them with crowdfunding or through my Patreon. I'm trying to figure out a convenient way to get those out to people who want them. We're doing a limited run of issue 1's remaster here for we only doing 100 copies of it. So we're doing a special holofoil cover. It's called a fan edition. And so, we'll have that very super limited because I wanted to offer that first to anyone who has been a part of this story for a while now. And the other reason is because it was an unscheduled, remaster. So it was a little more, is a lot more expense coming out for that than what was it. Because, I'm still working on issue 8. Like, we are in the process of doing the art for issue 8 right now. I will start that one on, I think May 20th is my start date for that one.
Well, continue crowdfunding because as much as you can, because they're, the crowdfunding people are, like Bap is talking about here. You filled the comics desert. I used to work in for a grocery company, and they used to talk about food deserts, which were urban areas in cities where people were going hungry because there was no place convenient to buy actual food.
Yeah,
and people like Bap live in an area where there is no place to buy comics locally.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to stop crowdfunding. In fact, that was one of the first things that Randy over at Arrow told me. It's like, no, keep crowdfunding. Keep the people that have been with you happy. Our goal is to reach people that have not been a part of this story before. So this isn't to we're not trying to take the sales from where you've currently been helping people, getting out there with people. We're trying to find a brand new audience for comic books. And
imagine if the mainstream comics had taken that approach, because it feels more to me like they're saying we want to reach a whole new audience, and we're going to do that by completely alienating the audience we already have, to shift everything over to this new audience rather than expand to include stuff for the new audience and keeping the old audience.
Yeah, it seems foolish, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's
that
crazy.
They would do that. It at the sake of gaining new audience, they alienate their current audience. That's not anything I want to do. I couldn't be doing this were it not for the help of the people that have been on board with this. Like Bap, who's gotten the books before, and the people who have been backing it now. This would not happen. 100%. This would not happen without them. And so I would not want to do anything that would make it more difficult for them to get a hold of the books that they've helped make. It wouldn't make any sense to me.
Now, one of the things you did mention was you have, and I'm looking at the page over here. I'm leaving yours up because I think yours is your screen's far more interesting, really, than for me to just go down the tiers and say, and you can get this and you can get that, and play the whole QVC thing. But you do have some variant covers here. Are you the artist on the variant covers, or did you have somebody else draw those?
I normally have somebody else do those, but this time around I am the artist on the variant covers as well. So
very nicely done. Yeah. I'm only looking at like a tiny little picture here off to the right of the Indiegogo screen. So I'm seeing the girl in the blue and the violet with the angel wings. I'm like, that's a very unrealistic J. Scott Campbell pose you have going on there.
Well, I am when all that mess happened. I was on Bancroft's stream last night, and they were talking about that kind of stuff. I'm like, if realism is what you want, man, I am screwed. I mean, look at what I've got on my screen right now. Does that look realistic to you?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, it's not.
I think it was Peter David once who talked about sexism in comics, and it was sort of like it's not the women in comics who are getting screwed over by their depictions. It's the men. I mean, the women, you can tell they have female parts on them, but take a look at the front of Superman's shorts. That sucker is as flat as
that poor guy.
Yeah, you're like, can the men be exploited a little bit more, please?
Well, they went. There was a time when they wouldn't even put nipples on men if they were shirtless.
Yeah. It was just
we're not there anymore. I mean, I put nipples on Trash Man all the time.
Well, they put nipples on Batman for a movie.
On the suit. Now that's a little weird, rubber nipples. I mean, that threw me off a little bit.
Yeah, I can. I knew that franchise had jumped the shark at that point too. But you also you have mentioned the role playing game that you got here.
Yeah.
So
This thing
tell
is
us
so
how that
cool.
comes together.
All right. So I'm just a big kid, and I knew what I wanted. It was a comic book that had a role playing game with it. And then had merchandise, had toys, had miniatures, and all those kind of things. And so when I started dreaming up this series, I thought ahead to all of those things. And as soon as I got done with issue 5, I started looking for someone who could help me make the dream of a role-playing game come to fruition. And that's when I met Nicholas Tockard, who has developed a tremendous engine to run this game by, so you get to play inside of this universe of the hybrids universe, and he's basically created the mathematics so that it works. And so it was kind of it was a long game play, like there was, we knew it was something that was going to take a while. We're very happy that, it's something that we can offer now. But we're going to have the full manual out later this year. And right now, this is the quick play. So we want to be able to give people the rules and the basics of the game in a playable. It's kind of like the tutorial play on a video game or something. And so that's kind of how how he's developed it. And he's just kind of taken, this universe that, that I created, and he's turned it into a playable game. And it's absolutely tremendous.
I've always had great difficulty playing role-playing games with superheroes. When I was, in early high school, kid 2 doors over was doing Dungeons and Dragons, and I would join their campaigns, and I was having all kinds of fun with that. He was a good DM. But then I got Champions. I was like, okay, well, this is just gonna be like Dungeons and Dragons, and that's when I realized that everything had attributes to it. I mean, I'm going to pick up the lamppost and pull it out of the street and swing it at the guy. Well, okay, what's the resistance of the lamppost? What? The lamppost has to have a role?
You're not going to get that with this game. I had always gotten frustrated with kind of that aspect of some role playing games, how they seemed so unplayable because of all that. And I told Nick, I said, hey, I want something simple that people can just pick up. Maybe they've never played a role-playing game before in their life. They like the books and they just want to try it out. And then I also want, to where if people have had experience with role-playing games and they've been in the D&D games, they've had, those opportunities, that they'll still be able to enjoy this. But without like just this overwhelming, tedious ness of learning new rules. And so Nick has developed a very easy set of rules for that very reason, so that people can just get in and start to enjoy the book and start to enjoy the game.
And sometimes the rules were too easy. I was at a convention later on, and they were introducing the DC Superheroes online role-playing game, which I had somewhere and is lost to the annals of time and people cleaning out the basement when I'm not home. Because I had the little pewter Justice League, and I had the little pewter Teen Titans, and heroes and villain sets that I hand painted with toothpicks that I crunched down into brushes. So I was serious about those things. But at the convention, they were having test runs of the DC Superheroes role playing game, and I sat in on that. I was like, okay, well, again, D&D. I know how this game's played, and I was assigned Green Lantern, and it was like, we'll go around the table here. Okay, we've got the robbery. The villains are coming out of the bank. What do you do? I'm like, well, I'm thinking Green Lantern. I'm like, I'm going to put a bubble of energy around them and take them to jail. And you could tell that the guy who was doing the DM was like, can you do that? I'm like, and I'm sitting here with 20 years of comic book history in my head. Like,
I'm Green Lantern. You bet I can do that.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we'll roll the dice. Okay, you got them. And that's how the game's played. Like, that was fast.
You're not going to have anything that easy with this. Even with the quick play, it's Nick has done a great job writing that. So he writes those the modules himself, and so there will be a part 2 to this module later on after we release the main adventure. And so I'm really excited about it. We're also putting and we've got 20. Well, actually now 15. We've already had 5 of the action figures go. We've got a special perk, like the completest perk, where you can get the action figure, and then we've also got a few of those available for add-on. So, just really trying to make this a fully immersive kind of experience for comics book people that, that like comics, that value them, that want kind of what we had with the Marvel and DC stuff, but maybe have been let down by it. I just wanted to create a good, well-written story that was an encouragement for people, that was fun for people, that dealt, that kind of created a new world to just live in a little bit in our heads. So that's kind of the purpose. Yeah.
I know we want the world outside our window, but we don't want exactly the world outside our window. We want to be able to relate to it and it still be fantasy. We don't need, we don't need what we're getting lately out of mainstream. Well, folks, if you're interested at all in what you've been hearing about here, both the comic and this role-playing game, it's all available on the Indiegogo, which is in the link in the description below. So we encourage you to click on that, check that out. This is the 7th book in a series. So Luke is maintaining a schedule, keeping the schedule. You are at this point, when we logged on here, at scroll up, 60% of your goal, 25 days left. I'm thinking, I know you started more than 5 days ago, so this must be the second 30 days.
No. Okay, so let me clarify. This is only a 28-day campaign, and we're not doing any of that tomfoolery where we do 30 days and then hey, it's another 30 days. It is what it is. It's 28 days. If it's a flex goal, so whatever we fund, that's what we're gonna ship with that and go with it. Because I'm the next book is launching a month and a half later.
So you're not even going in demand with it then.
It will go in demand until I start to fulfill. So I overprint a little bit, and so I will all the really cool stuff. And if you want any of the stretch goals, all of that stuff gets turned off at the end of the 28 days, and we just have basically issue 1. It's not. We have part 1 and part 2 available, so you can get those 2 things, and probably just cover A. Like we'll turn off all the other covers too. So anything special with the campaign you're not going to get. But if you missed out and you just want a copy of the book, we'll be able to do that until we fulfill. But honestly, the printer's going to be getting these files before we even finish. The idea is I'll have some idea about what my total print run is going to be, and so he can get started. So that we can get fulfillment going just as fast as possible. One of my goals is to be able to give the fans product at a higher rate and at a lower cost. And so I'm offering free shipping to the United States, discounted shipping to international backers, and I don't want to mess around with the whole 60-day campaigns and all that. And someone said, Luke, you're never going to get into the 5 digits. You're never going to break 10K doing that. And quite honestly, maybe I won't. But at the end of the day, it's not about whether or not I make $10,000 on this comic book. It's about whether or not I have happy customers. And so I want to do everything I can to get books into their hands as quickly as possible. Not just from the campaigns that they've backed, but also the next one. When the next book comes out, I want them to be able to, to know that they've got regular entertainment coming their way.
If you keep happy customers, you may not have a book that hits the $10,000 mark, although down the line you would have a better shot at it. But you won't have a book that hits $10,000, but you'll have books that regularly hit 4 figures, which a lot of those 5-figure books don't get the next time around.
Yeah. And that's the idea, is to build that audience over time, which I feel like I'm doing. I want to prove, like to develop that loyalty, to give them a solid quality story at the best quality that I can produce it. And, to give them the best prints that I can get, at the highest rate of speed that I can get them. That's, I love being able to get a new, the next issue of the stories that I loved. I loved being able to get those every month. And you can't really do that with indie. So I'm dedicated to trying to do that for all the people that support what I do, is trying to get them to that pace.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're going to be growing your audience through Arrow 4.0. So, Randy and Varian and all the guys there. Yes, I'm following the crew. I tune in for the Sunday funnies and other stuff. I'm glad to see that that's happening. And I'm also glad to hear that you're going to continue crowdfunding as you move forward with this. I think there is, I think that's a viable market, of sort of that, watch what I do here, that hybrid market.
There you go. I like that. Yeah.
where you can crowdfund and still go to the comic stores.
There's no reason why you can't. And I think it's good for everybody when you start to think outside the box.
Well, Luke, I know you have another stream that you have to be popping in on here now, and you want to give them a good sound check and get in there early. So we're going to cut things off here. Any plug about where you're going, where people can hop over and hear you continue talking?
I'm going to be over on Wise Guys stream here in just a little bit, few minutes actually. And so
that's WYZGYZ, folks. If you need to search that up, just jump on over there and continue watching Luke draw this. If Wise Guys lets him put the screen up, and I'm sure he probably will. I've got find this fascinating.
You've always got to be drawing. ABD.
I'm looking at all the blue line here. I'm like, oh yeah, I never really thought about they have to ink the squares inside of which everything is happening too. I just kind of always thought that was like, put a square down from the magic square fairy and then fill it in, to draw the panel borders. And I think it's real quick here. Do you draw the panel borders first when you lay out the page, or do you kind of like draw everything out there and say, okay, this is how wide this needs to be and put the panel to fit that?
It depends. If the script is already, it says, hey, there's going to be 4 panels long ways, then I'll go ahead and draw out the panels and then try to fit the action to go inside of what the script calls for. But if it's me, like, if I'm doing my layout or whatever, I kind of want a nice solid establishing shot up here in the corner, and then I want to work down to another. So if you see this, Brian Dawson did the layout on this, who does a lot of my layouts for hybrids, to kind of speed things up. So he'll do a set of layouts while I'm doing another book, and then as soon as he's done with those layouts, I'll move on to the next book. And so we keep the process that way so we can produce so quickly. Okay. You see, so he knows, like, hey, this first panel needs to be a good establishing shot where you get the scenery, the background. Then we have 2 talking head moments here where there's no background at all, because drawing a background on those would be stupid. There's going to be panels, there's going to be word bubbles there. No one's going to see it. No one's going to recognize it, And so it's just about those kind of interactions. So draw those and then end with a nice, really visually impressive shot that kind of makes you want to go into the next, like what's going on. So, and
they're close-ups anyway. I mean, even in the movies, when you got a close-up, you can't even see the background behind a person then, because it kind of all fuzzes out. But I couldn't do it with the panels first, I'm sure, because there's used to be a sign I saw that said, think ahead. And it was like, think ahead. And then it was like, the D had to be squeezed into the thing because they didn't think ahead with the size they had. That would be me. I'd be like, everything be scrunched into the far right side of the panel as I got to that far. All right, Luke, thanks for coming on the show and bringing Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, The Killing Field, Part 1 and 2. Longest title I've had to say tonight.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to go shorter, but like people wouldn't know what I was doing.
Well, when you put the title over here, you didn't bother with the Sons of God. You just put Hybrids, The Killing Field. So
I don't think I need to bother with the Sons of Gods anymore because, I've been trying to promote it around enough. People are familiar with that. I can say hybrids now and they know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. All right. Thanks for coming on. Folks in the chat, we appreciate you being here.
Yes,
We
thanks
don't
so
have
much.
a show without you. And as always, we just hope you had a blessing.